Welcome back, everybody, to the Alfalfa podcast. Hello, Alfalfa fam. We're here for a delightful life episode today. We've got Nick Urbani, the
Hi.
Algo, back in the house.
Apparently,
He's
my
gonna
new
tell
nickname
us-
is Sushi Boy. So
Sushi Boy.
I heard you fuckers. I heard you fuckers.
I did call you Sushi Boy. Can't wait to hear the Sushi Alpha. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a little bucket list, more things that are on the list of what to do before you die. Discussion that should be quite riveting and inspiring around that. And I've got a little alpha there that I want to dig into. And we're going to go into SpaceX's Starship launch scheduled for tomorrow. We're recording this on the 19th. It's happening on FO20. We'll see if this thing launches off and getting into discussion about what that means. Pretty historic if it happens. And kind of finishing out with our thoughts on the future. Are we optimistic? Are we pessimistic? Should we be exploring in general? And what does this mean for the human race? You guys ready?
No.
Locked in.
Actually, it's just about
You're
to
not ready?
leave.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. You have to leave?
Yeah. Get all
Shit,
the sun in my
dude.
face.
Oh, man, you're going to leave us?
Life's tough, brother.
Do I look like Jesus right now? Just
Yeah. So if you're not watching Steven on the YouTube right now, he's got a ray of sunlight just settling right on him.
Beaming on
we
him.
just realized that the studio at this time of year, apparently on this day, has just direct sunlight through the window. There's no shade. It's just on my face.
Are you prepared like a man of your pigment should be at all times?
For that kind of direct sunlight.
Yeah. Fortunately, I've been outside a lot, so.
I don't feel you had trouble with that as a kid. Were you like, did you need a lot of SPF 100?
No, I'm pretty.
Yeah.
I'm
You got the
fairly-
native thing,
I'm
right?
fairly tan, right?
You've got the 4%
132nd
native.
native.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Warren.
I am far more.
4%,
native than
right?
that. No.
That would be a lot.
I'm 12.5%.
12 and a half?
Yeah.
You
What,
got,
the rest
you
paisan?
got the receipts?
Yes.
Okay.
Armand's 12.5%
I literally
Neanderthal.
have the. I literally. I will have my mother fax you my tribal
my
papers.
my toes are the receipts for that one.
It's weird. Your
I
toes
have
just poured me a
Neanderthal
glass of
toes,
wine.
dude.
A
That was
Neanderthal
what split
toes and a golden
ultimately
dick.
was with the Neanderthals. We had this thing with our feet. We could do more with our feet than our hands. The sapiens just kind of took a U-turn, went the other direction.
Do you think some guy just made that up to sell us the toes with the funny, the
Probably.
shoes with the
Little
funny toes? in
Vibram.
them?
Yeah.
It's a pretty good narrative to
Oh, yeah.
pitch a Vibram.
I bought it. I had those when I was 25, and I went to the foot doctor, and he was like, "You're a moron."
Did you buy something? Did you learn this on the internet?
Yeah, that's what he asked me, and I said yes.
You were shamed.
I was ashamed.
Shamed by a superior. It happens. So, yeah, Nick, we were quite jealous, not going to lie. It seems like everyone and their mom has been in Japan lately. Got another friend going tomorrow, actually. So what was it like, and what did you eat? And give us the breakdown.
It was it was a blast. Like, I think the best part of it was just being in a completely different area. I mean, you go there and, the U.S. is pretty mixed, right? It's a melting pot. Japan isn't. So you're surrounded by completely different people, mostly Japanese, probably felt like 90% plus Japanese. I don't know
Almost
those stats.
entirely Japanese.
Yeah, entirely Japanese. They speak only Japanese. Different cityscape. Like just
Except our boy Liquidiate, by the way. Shout out
yeah,
to
yeah. I didn't get a
Liquidiate.
chance to meet up with them. Sorry, bud. I was
Americano in Japan.
our turnaround times in Kyoto and Osaka are pretty tight. Probably a little too short, and didn't get a chance to. But shout out to you, bud. But just like everything feels different there. You get this like I'm fucking traveling dopamine shock. At least coming from Southern California, it feels like that. The cityscape is different. A lot, and I forgot how big Tokyo is. I mean, it's like multiple Manhattans into one, which is fascinating on its own. Different culture, different food, and then it didn't really have like a routine that I have here. So like no routine in a completely different area. I've been 3 times, but still had the same good vibes.
Was this the third time?
Yeah, this was the 3rd time.
Yeah, I've been 3 too, and I would go 10 times.
Oh man, I mean, like a great vacation spot. It'd be tough to live there just if you don't know the language. I think like most Japanese people learn English in like 5th, 6th grade, kind of maybe carry it through, maybe through some high school. But like, it's not like other countries which learn English. There's still like a pretty noticeable gap with like
Wow, I
the
would
amount
have
of English.
assumed that they don't study it at all in school because the average Japanese person speaks basically zero English.
Yeah, maybe someone from the audience can kind of inform us better and
I
like
didn't
what
know
it's like.
that it was that standard.
I mean,
Because that is one of my favorite things about Japan is that, yeah, your English is not going to get you by. They don't give a fuck.
No.
They're just like, no, this ain't your world, buddy.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, maybe some of the hotels will know like a handful of
Yeah.
words to get you, get you by. But for the most part, you're kind of just like, trying to get through the day, which is not difficult. It's like a very different place, but it's easy to travel around. You got the trains, public
so have
transportation.
you ever thought about that? Like how you're in an alternate reality where completely different paradigm, completely different language, but yet everything as a foreigner makes sense and works.
Just flows.
I've thought about
Yeah.
this. I'm curious if you have like a feeling of like why a person could survive without speaking the language.
Yeah, I
in
mean,
such a foreign
everyone's had
environment.
those basic things like I need to find the bathroom, I need to pay for this. Like, I'm trying to get to this place. I mean, certainly, the internet helps. Having Google Translate, in a menu that's all Japanese, you can just take the Google Translate app, not even take a picture of it, just hover the camera over the menu and it instant translates the menu for you. That's pretty impactful. Obviously, being able to show a taxi driver, this is where I'm going on Google Maps, and it's in kanji, it's in Japanese, so they can, understand where you're going. That certainly makes things a whole
damn.
lot easier.
We've come a long way since
can you-
Lost in
Can
Translation.
you imagine that in like 1970?
Yeah, exactly.
What would you
Did you guys
do?
see Lost in Translation?
No.
Stayed
Bill
at that
Murray,
hotel.
Scarlett Johansson, Academy Award winner.
I'm familiar with it. but
Yeah.
I have not. Seen
Highly
it.
seen it for a
recommend
long
that bar is at the top of a hotel, Park Hyatt,
Park Hyatt.
in Tokyo. We stayed there. It was very, very nice.
My theory on why, though, is that the Japanese are the best builders in the world. And so everything, like the product experience that I would like to see in crypto, is so intuitive that you could just be looking at scribble letters, and yet ultimately the logic is there. The fundamentals are sound. Everything works the way you want it to and the way it logically should in many ways.
Like
Now, in
the-
many ways, they do everything backwards, obviously. Someone will come at me and say, like, well, everything's actually the opposite Armand. It's completely unintuitive. I understand that. But if you look at it from like a building perspective, engineering perspective, in my opinion, the Japanese and the Germans are the best in the world. Their products are the best in the world. And I think that shows.
Got 3 pieces of alpha for you. First alpha, food related. You go there for the sushi, but you keep coming back for the fucking steak. It's so good. Like we set up a bunch of reservations, and like the first 4 were omakase sushi, and we're just like stuffed. But then, there's really good sushi restaurants in San Diego. Obviously, if you live on the coast, you experience good sushi. You probably get different types of fish, all different types of seafood in the omakase, like some pretty weird ones. But the steak, it's hard to find a steak that good in San Diego.
Japanese steak is super underrated.
Yeah.
You don't hear people talk about it.
I think I had the best steak I've ever had there. So that's one. Second, Japanese toilets.
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
We knew
Toto.
that.
I know you know that. And
knew
it's
that.
funny because South Park had an episode. I rarely watch South Park, but I happen to
that
throw it up on
episode was
YouTube.
so good.
And my girlfriend and I are watching it, and there's an episode that just in this season about Japanese toilets, and it really just nails everything. It had trouble.
One of the only reasons I want to own a home is
you
to
can-
install full-blown
The Toto 9000?
Japanese- Yeah, the Toto 9000.
Did you,
Because I'm stuck with the Tushy 100 right now.
Oh man, I mean, your
it's
toilet doesn't
great.
lift open for you when you walk
It's
up
not
to it.
warmed up.
Play
Did
Oh,
you do all the
is it
buttons?
warm?
You play with all the buttons?
Oh yeah.
I'm scared.
Well, the first time you gotta be careful of the aim
Don't
of
hit the
that
girl
stream. Oh yeah, don't hit the girl button.
Hit you right on the tip of the penis. Literally, it would. It does.
They got a dryer. Some of them have deodorizers in them.
The dryers are such alpha.
Yeah.
Oh my
No,
God.
but
Yeah.
that's that.
So
And I'm
nice.
talking like your grungiest of public toilets got at least the base level Toto, warm seats, full bidet action.
No income inequality there. Not for the butt.
The last one is counterintuitive. So perfectly clean streets, 0 trash cans. There are no trash cans in Japan, just out on the
Very
streets.
hard to throw something away.
But you can't throw anything away. And so how is it that there's no trash cans, but everything's perfectly clean? Does trash cans actually create this like just tossing of
Consumption.
trash everywhere. But I mean, I consumed just as much as I did in Japan. I just had to carry
but
my
it-
trash with me
but
until I
doesn't it
went to
solve
an
the-
establishment.
Doesn't it solve the problem more upstream? If you know downstream there's no disposal, doesn't that change the way people build products upstream? I
Maybe.
think that's the point, right? Because it changes like the type of materials that are used. You're more likely to create sustainable materials that can be reused. Or
But it's not the materials. It's like I have to carry this stuff with me.
I get that part. I'm just thinking about the aspect of like what it does
Could be
to
both.
like, manufacturing.
I think like that culture is so polite that
Yeah.
they would like take their trash with them for like 10 miles if they were asked.
They
So
also
you
don't
had to,
like-
you had to carry it, right?
Yeah, and I knew that going in because we've been before, but it like hit me again. I was like, how's this place so clean? No trash cans. But they also don't walk and eat. You know, it's not like you're like, I don't know, carrying your like diet soda from McDonald's as you like walk through the streets. You get rid of it before you leave. So I don't know. Those things were pretty interesting to kind of pull out as maybe some life alpha for the
No
pod.
trash cans is weird.
Yeah.
That would not work here. That's not like some advanced technique. I think that just works because of the culture.
Homogenous culture that
Have
agreed
you-
on.
Have you guys ever seen
Some
like
rules.
Thomas Sowell talks about the study of UN diplomats who have like diplomatic immunity and like don't have to pay like parking tickets, but they did a study on like all the diplomats from all the various countries and which ones paid parking tickets and which ones didn't. And like the number one country I think that paid the most parking tickets was like Japan.
They're the World Cup team that cleans the locker room before they leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
They were cleaning the stadium.
Yep.
So was Korea. Yeah. Just a very polite culture.
Almost
Like, there's
just,
really
like awkward
Respectful.
for you because like in a normal interaction, like at a cashier, you might hear "thank you very much" like 3 or 4 times, and yeah.
Oh,
Wouldn't
last
get
time
that.
I went there, we took an Uber to the hotel. My buddy immediately left his cell phone in the Uber and gets in touch with the guy. The guy drove 2 hours to bring his phone back and then refused to take any money and then just left.
But yeah. Also, no tips there, by the way.
It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it.
You're just supposed to expect good service, and he did it out of the kindness of his heart. Right thing to do.
It's just like, no, you just do that. You would do it for me.
I was in the train station. I was wondering if I could like take a bunch of money and just spread it out and just see if like everyone would pick it up and
They
hand
just
it back to you.
collect it. Yeah.
The
Yeah,
other thing I
this
did
makes
there
me
that was
think.
interesting is we were like out late at night and we found out there was like a 2-star Michelin like wood-fired pizza place like in an alley near us. And it was like $12 for a pizza and it looked like this little hole in the wall like pizza, but it was like a 2-star Michelin restaurant. And we went in there and just ate this like pizza. It was unbelievable, like in Japan. And that was just like not a thing I thought we would do. It just happened to be like right there. That was like super fun. I had such a good night. God, I want to go back.
Let's run it back, boys.
How do you guys feel about pooping away from home?
Fine.
You're
No,
fine
no
with that?
stage
As long as
fright.
there's a bidet.
Okay, so I'm like,
As long as there's a
I'm not a
bidet.
fan of these road games. I like to play home games mostly.
Okay, so you hold it until
So
sounds uncomfortable.
yeah, I try to most times, particularly when I'm traveling. But in Japan, I remember I go into like a 7-Eleven and, had to. So I go. And the cashier, like you said, is like, hey, thanks for stopping by. What an honor. What an honor to have you. I was like, pleasure was all mine, dude. You're so polite.
Yeah.
By the way,
they're
7-Elevens. I
extremely
think
polite.
the founder was from Japan. They're not. There's good quality food in there. I think I bought your gifts from 7-Eleven.
I mean, I don't think we've told. I don't know if we've told the story on the pod. But the last time we went to Japan, Nick and I went together. We talked about the trip, but like one of the things that happened is we were sitting at a bar. We got into a conversation with this guy, and he said, "I'll be back. Wait here." And he came back with a bag of gifts,
It was candy. He bought
Candy.
a whole bag full of
all
Japanese
different
candy.
style. He was like, "I want you to try all these different candies," and it was Takashi,
Takashi, I think that was called. Yeah.
or Togadashi.
I don't know.
Something like that. I wrote it down. But like, who does that? Like, that doesn't happen in most societies.
We
in
had some
most
good
places.
drunk encounters with strangers at the bar. It was fun.
Let me think about it. Can you imagine me telling you that in America, like, Hey guys, I was sitting at the bar and there was this guy from Cambodia, and it was his first time in the United States. And I said, "Just wait right here, sir. I'll be right back."
Gotta get
And
you an
I went
In-N-Out
to
burger.
7-Eleven. Yeah, or I went to In-N-Out and I brought it back, and I'm like, "You must try." No, we don't operate that way. That's not in our code.
Like, they give him a gun. Welcome to America. You're gonna need one.
I think it's because of like the homogeneity of.
I know. I didn't want to
Japan.
start and open it, but I was
Yeah.
like thinking about our discussion around like Scandinavia. I was thinking about crime and like hospitality
It's
and
like
how
small town, like
Yeah.
Midwest U.S., where everybody's the same, everybody knows each other, everybody looks the same, everybody's very, very nice. But then you go to
an
like New York
agreement.
City, and if you do that, somebody will like probably pull a knife on you and be like, "What are you trying to rob me?"
yeah, the sort of like diversity of opinion and backgrounds creates more prosperity and freedom and upward mobility for everybody. But then the trade-off is like insecurity, trash, broken systems, crime, pain in general. But in these societies where like it's more homogenous, like I don't know, everyone has a higher baseline. It really seems, and it just seems like more respectful of each other, less fear, less security issues. I don't think that applies everywhere. Like you can't apply that to the Congo. It's a very homogenous culture, but very unsafe place. So there is, if I was going to steel man the argument, definitely like there are plenty of homogenous cultures where things are absolutely terrible. But there's something there. There's something there to explore more.
It's like a hierarchy of needs baseline plus homogeneity equals.
Yeah, there you go.
Everybody's very nice.
There's a formula somewhere.
Yeah.
So where do you guys want? Like, what are some other like? So actually, one more question for you, Nick. How much was this trip dictated by the recent alpha from this year for you around spending more on these types of experiences? From the book that you read,
Yeah. Die
and
with Zero.
Die with Zero, and some of the new planning that you've done, and your new yearly plan for 2023.
I mean, I didn't hold back. Like we didn't spare expense on it. We like did it. And I think for me,
This is your rich life.
yeah, I guess. And like I don't like to buy things. Like I've had the same car for over a decade. Like a lot of us are very similar in that respect, and don't like to buy things. But when it comes to this, it's like, no, this is experience. We'll remember this forever. Like we want to like experience it the way you want to experience it. And I think, I don't know, for me, it was even more so like that, with just a little less like that talking voice in the back of your head. Like, well, should you really spend this much on this dinner? Like that's kind of obscene. And should you really have a car drive you around and things like that? And just did it the way we wanted to do it, and
Nice, dude.
not without like a back talk from yourself about.
Yeah, well, I think that's really healthy. It was part of what I wanted to share today, and it's so tightly related that I'll just say it. So last night I started watching Ramit Sethi's new documentary, not documentary, his series on Netflix. And by the way, unbelievable. I've been following this guy for 15 years. He's come such a long way. He's built this huge brand, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And now he's got a series on Netflix. Over the last couple of years, he's been doing a podcast, I don't know if you guys are familiar, where he sits down with couples and he talks to them about their finances. It's an amazing podcast because they share everything, and it's like basically therapy for the mind around money. And he works through all kinds of money trauma with people, but ultimately helps them set up very simple systems to become wealthy. I've been utilizing Ramit's system since he wrote his book 12, 13 years ago or whatever it was. So started watching the series last night, really enjoyed it, highly recommend it to anyone. I think it's called How to Get Rich on Netflix, Ramit Sethi. But his cardinal rule is to to spend extravagantly on the things you love, but to cut ruthlessly on everything else. It's a really simple framework. It's just like you decide. I said rich life. I was saying it because that's what he says. He says, define what your rich life is and go and do that and fucking say yes to that. Like when you do it all the way without that feeling of like, I think what I did for many years is like I would just do everything like kind of halfway. And instead what happens is you're always feeling a little guilty about everything. Oh, should I have done that? Should I have done this? No, you shouldn't have done most of it. But what you should have done is spent extravagantly on that one trip or on that one car. Even a car is a good example of like, don't go get the $30,000 car. Get the McLaren. Get the Mercedes that you want. Get the whatever that you want, if that's the thing for you.
It's identifying what brings you joy.
Yeah.
And then like just diving into that. And then there are many things that we all do that aren't really.
And you've brought this up, right?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this on
You're
one
really
of
good
our-
at this, too.
One of our old episodes. Yeah. I sort of just do this naturally, but yeah, I agree. I think I used his verbiage
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
You know, like spend
Do you find that like with a couple, with your partner, it's like, well, there's two concentric circles, and there's probably like maybe a little overlap, hopefully a lot of overlap, where you both agree like, no, this is what we love, and we're gonna spend a lot on this, and then this stuff we're gonna cut.
So what I found
bare minimum.
within my relationship, what I found is that the Venn diagram doesn't overlap really significantly at all. It's just more like compromise, understanding what the other person's version of a rich life is, and then like leaning into that, and then they'll do the same for you, and then you guys kind of like meet in the middle that way.
Yeah, totally. And I think identifying that intersection is so important, though, even if it's only like 10%, because then you can design an actual sort of plan together of like what you want to attain as a couple. And I think that's really hard for a lot of couples. It causes a lot of conflict, tremendous conflict. I think like most couples get into conflict over finances more than anything.
Yeah. Okay. So as I like think more about that, I think the way that we actually do it is kind of like what you're saying. It's like, I think the Venn diagram overlaps more if you're talking about like values than things. Like Mina might like a designer handbag and expensive perfume or something, which I could give zero about. But like we both are like family first oriented. So when it comes to family stuff, we will just say yes to all that.
You go fly to
and
family
and I think with that we'll sort of overlap, but mostly
Yeah.
her stuff and my stuff. Like I want to go watch a Padres game. She's like, fine, or whatever.
So what are some life experiences you outside of Japan, Nick, and just like things you guys think about? It's like, man, those are some things that I have to do while I am here on this planet alive. Like I must experience these things. Like, do you have like a bucket list of sorts?
To me, like when I think about this, like my mind always goes to like Anthony Bourdain. Like when I see him going to like random places and just like eating food and then being in the culture and like taking in the people and the culture and the food, like I keep going back to that. To me, like that sort of thing is just, and like when I look back on a lot of my experiences traveling, like so many of them are food. And not necessarily like, oh, I ate in this like 3-star Michelin or something. Because like honestly, like half the time they are bleh. But that like, oh my God, I want to go to this specific locale and try this very specific thing in this kind of like rundown restaurant and like talk to the owner. Like I want to like try to intentionally carve out more of those experiences for sure.
Dude, couldn't agree more.
That's like particularly interesting to me because as you travel more, you realize there's like 1,000 ways to live this life. And maybe we talked about this before, but you only get one of them.
Yeah, that's why you guys are crazy for wanting to die so soon.
Nobody said that.
Who wants to die soon?
He's like, the fact that you'd ended at 5,000 is so weird.
Oh God, that
You said like
episode,
400.
Jesus Christ.
No.
Maybe.
Check.
All right, we don't have to rehash that.
Yeah,
now.
let's not rehash that. So the point is like, you only have one of these life, but like you can't live all 1,000. But like, wouldn't it be nice to go into different places of the world, particularly maybe not the most traveled, like I don't know, Western Europe, for example, but to go to places where you can see how a life is lived differently, and maybe you get some gratitude from it. Maybe you get a different perspective, and you bring it back home and tweak your life a little bit. But just like being able to experience it for a short period of time, I think is
Absolutely.
is pretty special.
I think for
Get
me,
FOMO on different ways to live life.
that's why my version of my rich life is all about flexibility, and it's the ability to leave this home base for extended periods of time and go and experience. For me, the people side of the Bourdain equation is what stands out. Like I love the food side of it too, but like the people side of the types of people Bourdain would meet or that I have met in my travels, I've been super fortunate, traveled a bunch. And what stands out to me the most is the conversations I've had. I mean, like one of my first trips I remember early on was to Cuba. And like we nicknamed this guy Hemingway that we had met. And I still remember lessons that I learned from him, quotes. I bring things up with my wife. I'm like, do you remember when Hemingway said this? And she's like, yeah, that changed everything for me. And like real impactful stuff. Like he would make comments to us about our relationship. And we're like, we've only known each other 3 months. And he was like giving us all this sage wisdom. And it was just like otherworldly almost, like this guide was here. But I've had so many experiences like that in different parts of the world where it's just like, this is abnormal. This is giving me like a whole other sense of reality that I didn't know existed. And what it does is it just like adds to the wallpaper of your experience. It's like you're quilting an experience, and you go into Cambodia or Cuba or Zanzibar and you extract another framework for how to view reality, and you add it into your quilt. And ultimately what it does is it just like broadens your own way of living, and it allows you to let go of the way people are living here and your judgment for how you should be living in your home base. You just start to not give a fuck. You're like, I know more. I've seen more. I've been exposed to other ways. This is not the only way. And your social pressure is not going to make me different. And that's it. Like, I'm going to stand up for the life that I want to live, and I don't care whether my family or my friends thinks differently. I think that's the value of travel. Like, that's why I go more than anything.
When we talk about like bucket list items, you mentioned Bourdain, and this like popped in my head immediately. So to Tony Robbins, you can knock him and that's fine, but like I find a lot of valuable stuff in his advice, and he has this idea of like there's the science of success, and then there's the art of fulfillment, and they're two very different things. And so Bourdain got the science of success right, but as we know, sadly, he did not necessarily master the art of fulfillment alongside of that. And so one of the things I had like written down before this was like, one of the things I want to accomplish before I die is I don't want to necessarily become bitter as I grow older. You know, as you get a little older, you experience things like death, especially with close family members, and that can like really just weigh on you daily. And I don't necessarily want that to like bitter. And as you grow older, you get physical limitations, you get social and friendship limitations, and I don't want that to happen. And that's one thing.
This is such a good one. I think this should be a pod topic, because like I find the bitterness coming out when as you get older, you get more experience. Like Armand's talking about, you see more things, you learn more things, you know more things, and in knowing more things, you can get bitter at like new ideas that you've already seen tested and fail, and you're just like, ugh. No.
That kind of bitter? No, that's just your mustache talking. Don't worry. That one's easy.
For bucket list stuff, I was like hearing you guys, and I think about new places, right? Like I don't have an itch to go any specific place. I've had the luxury of going to many places, and I think where I'm excited, as I'm just like looking at myself now, we're talking about going to visit Mina's family who live in Iran, but we can't go to Iran. So we'd go to Turkey to see that family group. And that would be exciting for me, because like family is like our shared value. And
Beautiful place.
I think it's more for, like you said, it's more for the people in that regard. Because like I've traveled enough to know that you can have a magical experience anywhere. It just depends on, did you meet that guy named Hemingway in this particular moment that you were there? Was the weather nice that you were there? Because you see things in such a limited sliver. And in that sliver, did you have that experience that became meaningful to you, and that changed your whole perception of what this place is?
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Actually makes me a little sad sometimes when I've been to like a great place and it doesn't quite deliver. I'm like, damn, I don't think I quite dialed this right to have the optimal experience. Not that I have a regret about it, but it's like that could have been better. I have to go back and
it's
redo
hard
that.
to create that experience when you are visiting a place that you don't know, but you want those like random moments to happen, and you're like, but I don't live here, so how do I like craft that? But yeah, I mean, those are the ones that you remember the most.
I have something about regret that I've been thinking about that I thought I would share, because you also said something about bitterness, and I think it's related. I was thinking recently about just this idea of Let me find my exact note here. I was just thinking about like how, I just became a dad recently, and I became a dad at the age of 36. And you guys aren't dads yet, and I think you're all at least a year older than me. But I still recognize the fact that like compared to like a suburban dude or like a country dude, like I'm much older. Now on the other side of that, my dad was 38 years old when I was born. This is no big deal. And I never was in a rush to have a child. I always wanted to wait. But I was talking to Steven about this one time where I was like, once I had my baby, this like thing hit me where I was just like, what have I been waiting for? Like, why did I wait so long? Like, could I have done this in my 20s? And why did I not? And I'm one of these people, I'm extremely lucky that I received this like gene from my dad where I'm never regretful or jealous. Like I just don't compare myself to other people, and I definitely never get down about my past. I'm just like, it's all here, and this is where I am now, and this is great. And it's just something I don't think about, but it's just something I'm very fortunate to have gotten from my dad, both probably like literally genetically to some degree. Personality, I think, is partly genetically passed. I mean, we know that happiness even is partly genetically given to you, but also just the model that was like represented. Like anytime something would come up, he'd be like, he'd use words to illustrate exactly what I'm describing. But I still was sitting there for a moment just being like, man, I could have been a younger dad and, all these things. And, by the time, how old will I be when my daughter's this age? And then how old will I be when my daughter's this age? And I started playing that out. And I was like, whoa, what am I doing here? And it was new for me. I was like, why am I doing this? And suddenly I asked myself a different question. I asked myself, well, what did I do instead? Like, what did I gain instead of having this baby 10 years ago? And I thought through the 47 countries that I visited and what my rich life has looked like for the last 10 years and the things that I've gotten to do. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, look at that. Like none of that wisdom could have ever been available to pass on to my daughter. None of this life experience, none of this ability to like create this company today, all of it. Like, and it's just like, I share this because so many people struggle with regret. And it's something that we're all optimizing against to make sure that we never feel regretful. But I think it's very easy to make sure you don't, because all you have to do is be grateful for everything that you've experienced and know that it was part of the journey. And if you're sitting there going like I realize this as well, is like, what if somebody says, well, Armand, like, but I look at the past 10 years and I didn't go to 47 countries and I didn't do anything meaningful with my life and it sucked. And to that I would say, well, then get fucking busy. Like today, now. Like whenever I need that boost, I'm just like, I find the inspiration and I go watch something like Walter Mitty, which is like this really like beautiful movie that always puts me in like
So underrated.
such a good state of mind. And I'm like, if you're Walter Mitty and you're out there struggling to like just go and do something, find that thing that like hits the spark for you and go and take a risk and do it, because like every day that goes by, that's what's making the regret heavier. It's the lack of movement and mobility in your life of trying things. It's not the fact that you made the wrong decision. I didn't make the wrong decision by waiting to have a baby. I made the right decision for me. And I should be grateful that I had all this mobility in my life.
I think it's a good way to talk about the nuance. Can I add in like an extra layer of nuance that might be more difficult?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so this is gonna be a hard one. So like you waited till you're 38 to have a child, and you paid no consequences to that. You got to have a child still and visit 47 countries in advance. What if you waited till 38 and because of that decision, you were no longer able to have a child, and then you're still saying to yourself, worth it, dude. Got to see my 47. And that's like something that people face.
Yes.
That's hard.
Very true. There's no easy answers there. That's where I think then I start to think about things like suffering in general and the meaning behind any level of suffering at all whatsoever. And when life doesn't give you what you want, like what do you do with that when you want something specifically and life just doesn't seem to want to give it to you? And how do you still find gratitude? Those are not easy questions or easy to find answers at all. But I think it ultimately comes down to like trusting your journey, trusting what the universe and life is giving you. There's always something deeper if we can extract it. I think that's what Tony would say. I think it's believing that life happens for you, not to you, which is one of my favorite things that he just like simplified for me. But it's easier said than done.
Anyone have anything else? I mean, I had a bunch of other stuff, but they're kind of like simplistic compared to what we've talked about so far.
I do want to do. I want to do like random stuff, like really luxurious, high end like trip experiences.
Yeah,
like I
talk to
want to
me.
go to like Scandinavia and like be in one of those like glass domes and like go and see the Northern Lights that way. I want a lot of these like guided experiences. I want to go to Antarctica and do it the right way, like beautiful guided experience. I want to get my Walter Mitty Iceland kind of experience.
Throw in the backpack.
Yeah. Get the skateboard. Just a lot of that kind of stuff for me. Like it's more than anything, it's the go out into the world and get lost for extended periods of time. Like I'm excited for your Nepal trip, dude.
Yeah,
like that
I hit up
is-
the
I have
person
this
trying to help me. I was like, okay,
feeling that one's gonna
need to
be
get this.
amazing.
Need to get this situated. So I'm gonna get on the phone with him.
Yeah.
Actually, one of our listeners hit me up on Twitter about he had already been to Bhutan. Him and I have been chatting here and there.
Oh, Bhutan,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Is it as happy as they say, according to this man?
We were still good chatting about it, but yeah, it sounds like he enjoyed it. Like it was, he had thought I already had been to Bhutan, and so I was like, no, I need the Alpha, brother, hook it up. Yeah, so hopefully by the end of the year, that's the plan.
Let's shift gears into not just the planet, but outside of this place, going to the moon, going to Mars.
These segues.
You love them.
So good.
From
I'm gonna
Bhutan
make
to
you
Mars.
do them all from now on if you don't. So tomorrow is launch day for SpaceX, and there's no really clear indication that it seems like one of the first times that Elon is like under promising,
Maybe.
because he's just like success is just not blowing this thing up.
He's
Right.
basically like, it'll be entertaining either way
Yeah.
because it's either going to work or it'll blow up.
This is like
Yeah.
wild to me. This vision, this like I'm more interested in like the logistical plan of like how do you get
Can
to
you tell me what
Mars?
the vision is? What this thing represents? What is this?
It's
Okay.
a step toward Mars.
Okay.
So imagine, so this thing, the actual Starship is about 16 stories high and about 30 feet in diameter.
It's bigger than 16 stories. Isn't
I thought it was
it?
167 feet, no?
That was 100.
No, it's 120 meters.
Oh,
It's
shit.
like 400
Meters.
feet high.
Okay, so it's 40
Towers
stories
over
high.
like the Statue of
40
Liberty.
stories high and 30
Yeah.
feet.
So this is
across.
like a international
No,
space
wait.
station type of.
Maybe it was 30 meters.
biggest
It's
rocket.
120
no, 100 and
meters.
something meters for sure.
So hold on, I have no knowledge here. So he's building something where you can go up there and dock on your way to Mars. Is that what's going on?
So essentially the plan is you send up one Starship. It hovers in orbit, in Earth's orbit. You send up another Starship. They connect. You refuel Starship 1. Starship 2 that just held the fuel, it lands back on Earth. So this key thing is that it's reusable. Then you send Starship on an 8-month journey. It happens every 26 months, apparently when the alignment is like good for short travel from Earth to Mars. And then you can send one. Ideally, once things are settled, you can land that thing on Mars, use the native water, or melting ice, I assume, and carbon dioxide to create the same fuel that Starship needs to send it back to Earth. So he's talked about in one of these tweets where you basically set up 100 Starships, put them in Earth's orbit, refuel them, and then literally like Battleship Galactica, literally send over 100 Starships with all the cargo you
So
need.
this is the way to civilize.
They can hold like 100 people, right?
Well, so I was trying to imagine that. So, okay, this makes more sense. Like 40 stories high and whatever, maybe the size of this office in diameter. Okay, that makes more sense about holding 100 people plus, 100 metric tons of like cargo that it needs. And that's fascinating.
It's a very grandiose vision.
Yeah,
The
no
idea of, like,
shit.
just sending 100
It's your
of these
boy.
up and
Your boy. It's also the first time anyone has even been like, we should reuse a rocket. and land it back down.
Dude, doesn't he deserve some credit for the grandiose visions, if nothing else? Because like poo-pooer over here just says like, oh yeah, grandiose. Like, no, that's fucking awesome. That's awesome.
It is literally
How is me calling the
fundamentally
vision grandiose?
it is
Poo-pooing it.
fundamentally changing the arc of humanity
Because,
and
sorry,
the evolution of humanity.
you didn't say anything today, but you've only said
Oh,
everything
you've only
for
ever
2 years
said
before this.
That he's
Sorry.
a con artist.
Yeah, come on.
Sometimes he is. The boring company is stupid, and like he like still can't put solar shingles on your roof. So like it is an interesting.
But it's all what you focus on.
It's interesting
It's all what we
juxtaposition.
look at. It is an interesting juxtaposition, but I guess it comes down to like the parts we focus on. And I've always focused on like he takes a lot of shots, and the shots that he's produced results on are not just normal. These are human evolution trajectory changing shots that are unfolding before our eyes, and that deserves credit. And along the way, please God, allow the man to shoot other shots and miss, just like Michael Jordan, just like anyone else. Like, allow him to shoot some shots and miss. Again, and I said lately that his stock is way down for me, especially with the way he was like treating people and the Twitter sagas and all that. That's all part of it. It's all part of the equation. But I think it's incredible what he's doing, what they're doing. It's obviously so far beyond Elon as well. Like, his ability to attract such incredible talent is what is making this possible.
I think you do that when you got a, big, hairy, audacious vision.
Yeah.
Like that has meaning. I think you do attract like
Right.
natural talent by saying like, we are going to tackle this and like, it's going to be hard, but like I'm calling on all the best and brightest, and some of the best and brightest are naturally
I mean,
called
something
by
he,
that.
he deserves credit for is that he's got capital back it up, that he's earned on his own with a little bit of help from government subsidies or whatever you want to say, and also a track record of success here and there that enables sort of people to buy in, which I think deserves more credit than, like consternation that he receives.
There's so many things to give credit to, and I don't want this now to become the opposite. Well, usually he gets bashed, but now we're just lauding him. But like, the guy places like enormous bets, all-in bets. These are all-in bets. Like, Tesla was an all-in bet. SpaceX was an all-in bet.
bankrupted by SpaceX.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
So like, the most important thing here is the fact that he like went all the way all in to make SpaceX happen, and the probability of success was probably like 5%, and like maybe less.
So because this, like, we might see like humans on Mars in our lifetime. So I think 2025 and 2028, there's moon missions where the Starship is some portion of it, whether it's like taking people from the shuttle to the moon and back, like shuttling humans, or the whole thing. I'm not exactly sure,
Wait,
but
do you know how long it takes to get to Mars? Is it 8 years?
8 months.
8 months.
Months, yeah.
Okay.
8 months.
Space is really big. I had an order of magnitude there.
Yeah.
8 months isn't too
Not
bad.
Not
Yeah, but
bad.
like, I mean, the amount of technology you need to create for that to happen, like, you would lose muscle mass in a, gravity-free environment over 8 months, and you're supposed to go build a brand new civilization. Like, there's things that have to get figured out.
It's still crazy to think about, like, how big space is, that you're on a rocket just rocketing for 8 months straight
at
to get
hundreds of
places.
thousands of miles per hour. And
Fast
Yeah,
as
like
possible.
you left somewhere like the beginning of September.
Is it a
you're
given
just-
you lose
just
muscle
getting
mass?
there now.
You think
Yeah.
rectum maintains his quads?
no fucking chance. Nothing to push up against.
He's not going to Mars. There's no way. Yeah, I don't want to like focus
Sex
on
on Mars
I don't want
would
to focus
suck.
on.
Yeah.
be terrible.
You just threw me
sorry.
off with your sex
Continue.
comment again. I don't want to focus on like Elon so much. I think like it's cool what he's done, but like it's more just like an incredible. When I saw that thing just standing up there like 400 feet of that rocket, and was like, holy cow! Like humans built this.
Biggest one
And-
ever, right?
I think it is.
Yeah.
It is. I was shocked by how much bigger it is than the space shuttle. Like
Yeah.
it just makes the space shuttle look like a freaking little toy car. It's crazy. It's a big thing, and like I don't know. It reminded me of like how advanced it is, but simultaneously like how primitive it is. Like I could imagine like a very advanced space traveling civilization that just zaps and warps places,
Right.
being like, oh, look at these little monkeys strapping themselves to this little pile of metal
Huge
and with some
rocket,
gas
yeah.
and just lighting it on fire and just
Yeah.
waiting 8 months to go somewhere. That's like cute.
Yeah.
But for us, it's like the frontier of everything.
I hope we keep it in the space museum in the future, though. Be sick.
Yeah, it is
I'm
pretty.
imagining like a floating space museum in like one of our galaxies. We all just like visit and we show up and hey, remember that? It's
pretty primitive. I mean, you can't paint that thing a pretty color because all the paint would be so fucking heavy. It's just not useful. But like, I'm not a space geek by any mean, but you know, Musk does talk about that. What's more exciting than trying to become a multi-planetary, planet species? And what other thing could make you more optimistic about the future if you can watch humanity as a group like accomplish this? And I kind of buy into it because like I'm just watching this test flight. I'm eager to watch it. I'm excited to
What
see.
time is it at?
I think it'll be like 5 a.m. PST tomorrow
Yeah.
morning.
So it makes you more optimistic.
I think so.
A lot of people get pessimistic about this kind of stuff. They feel like we're putting our time and resources and energy and dollars in the wrong direction.
Well, like
Yeah,
technology
so-
passes
And they
down,
feel
by the
like
way.
all we're doing is
that's
like
fair.
avoiding like conflict at home
This
on
is
Earth.
such a polarizing situation because
Very.
people will say, "Oh, you have all this money. Why not solve poverty and hunger on Earth?
Right.
Why are you trying to go to Mars?"
This is the like that's the like left curve kind of like symbol.
but you hear this all
or
the time.
is it the right? Yeah.
You hear it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read Musk say like, when you have a civilization that's alive in the universe, the question is, do you go beyond one planet? Like, if you can go beyond one, you might be able to go beyond two, and like that is the question, because do you only stay on the one planet? He's like, if we can make that leap, then exponential more improvement from there. But towards the economic argument, all this technology will get passed down, through the economy. Like there will be advances in technology that eventually become commercialized that I think consumers do get to experience.
I agree with both those takes. Yeah. And I think like, man, there has to be like a huge premium on the insurance policy that we're taking out to protect the conscious mind, right? Like, isn't this what he talks about? He says like, we have had this privilege of having a mind as like Homo sapiens, and we're at such risk of like one big comet or something hitting Earth, and that is all destroyed.
Talks about it's like a flicker of flame, and it can be
problem-
blown out.
Protect that.
The problem with the argument of, hey, Mr. Billionaire, why don't you focus on the problem at home, is that it's none of their business. We all have the freedom and opportunity to focus on whatever we want to focus on. As long as we're not committing a crime or hurting anybody, why wouldn't we reward somebody for trying to solve any problem?
Oh, well,
no one person can solve every problem.
I think that
they
applies-
have to follow their interests.
That applies to Musk, but what about when you're talking about a publicly funded NASA program or something like that's government funded, that's based on taxpayer dollars?
Sure, and the discrepancy between funds going toward problems that people deem are more worthy versus like space
Well,
exploration.
my dollars are not going to solve problems that serve me, but serve some Martian species.
That's
But
how
I don't think
that's how we
it's-
got here, right? Like NASA essentially was like defunded, saying like
I
we
don't
don't
think
need to
it's
spend money.
true. I don't
Yeah.
think it's true. I think
So-
like the majority of dollars do go.
I did hear
toward,
so-
but they don't trickle down to.
I did hear something suggesting, I mean, this is from like a NASA-ite. This guy was telling me that this is like a government program that funds itself based on its tech innovation. I don't know if that's true, but
Universities kind of have this like commercial licensing capability where you can go in these tech transfer programs. Like San Diego State had one, and we participated in that. And you can make money that way by licensing out the raw technology that you create. So I don't know if NASA has that.
I feel like we used to create like so much incredible technology via NASA and via like a lot of these government programs. And I don't know if this is correct, but it feels like that's stopped. Doesn't feel like anything comes from the public sector anymore. And I feel like that's a little bit sad. I think that people who are like, Elon should be saving hungry people on Earth, and I get the argument that it's his money, he can do what he wants, but like I think a better counter argument to that is like what you were advocating for is to like alleviate human suffering in a way, right? But you're a little like too sort of like myopic in your vision if you're just focused on, hey, these humans are suffering here right now. I think if you zoom out a lot, you can argue that if we don't become an interplanetary species, then it's not a question of like if human civilization will end, it's just a question of when, right?
Yeah.
And if you could have hypothetically gotten to a point where humanity could thrive for 1 million years because they become sort of so decentralized, they spread out throughout the universe and like no one like kind of spark of catastrophe can end the human race, then if you're able to prevent that from happening, if you're able to make the jump to interplanetary and that allows humanity to thrive like across infinite generations, then in a way you have saved billions, hundreds of billions of human lives if you zoom out far enough and project far enough into the future. So
logical.
Through that lens, I think this is great. You just have to accept that it's a benefit for humanity. It just might not be in the present day. You might not be able to see it. You might not be able to like help
someone
people
else
now.
can focus
So
on
let me
that.
put some stats to it in a algo type of way. Nick, I don't know where you were on this one, but here I am. NASA's annual budget is funded from the federal government budget. It is as a percentage of the federal total. In 2020, it received $22 billion from the federal budget, which is 0.5% of the total
pennies,
U.S.
bro.
We
federal
spent
budget.
that on like one plane to drop bombs on people. It's like so sad.
Since its inception, the United States has spent $650 billion on NASA. So I think
And in favor of NASA, we just, kind of, there was a comment about where's the innovation as well. Well, the James Webb Telescope was a huge thing. So even with this limited amount of funding and talent and research time, like they did help develop, like they were the pioneers behind it. It was a collaborative effort between a couple different space agencies, government space agencies, but they were the ones that created this. And this is the greatest thing one of the greatest things we've ever created. So,
I think it even goes back even further to support your point. I was just showing the stats, but I think to support your point, they've like created things that are even like in consumer use. Like I think like polarized sunglasses are like a NASA invention that trickles down, etc. But
is the space pen one the one that
one that still writes without gravity?
Is that one of theirs or someone else made that?
The algo would have to look that up.
I actually was looking at it on Amazon. I was like, I should get one of these.
I need this.
It was just suggested. It was
Ramit
just
Sethi is just like, shut up. No, you don't.
well, Amazon's becoming its own algo now. It's like freaking like an Instagram algorithm. It's starting to feed you all this shit you don't need. Oh man. No, I agree. I think again to add to your point, Stephen, as well. It's like I think it's a silly argument. Super silly. It's just dumb. Like let people work on the innovative things that drive them, that they find innately exciting. Everyone is here to do something. If let me put it a different way, most people are doing nothing. If somebody's doing something, shut up or support them in every way you possibly can. That is literally a foundational thing for me. Like it is so easy to sit and talk and critique what people do. Shut up. Most of the time, all you need to do is shut up and applaud somebody's work and behavior or become useful. And most people are just not useful. So the person that says the problem is this Elon or this Jeff or this Mike should go and work on that problem themselves instead of arguing and bitching about, well, I don't have the resources to solve the problem the way you do. If you just gave this percentage of your wealth, it would solve the problem overnight. He's got too many things he can do.
Taxes.
He's got an opportunity cost. Yeah, that too. But like, go get busy doing it yourself instead of complaining. Most people don't do shit. Man.
I got more good ROI stats on your NASA public
Here
funding.
he comes. I woke him up, the algo.
Memory foam.
Memory foam.
Memory foam developed by NASA engineers, now enjoyed every night when you sleep tidy in bed.
Enjoyed by me.
Yep.
That's a fact.
Scratch resistant lenses. Okay, cool. Water filtration. I mean,
that's pretty important.
that was created by NASA for astronauts now
they can
in
drink their
every
pee?
single fucking home. Infrared thermometers, more in like healthcare, you experience it, but you're also your cooking utensil to make sure your steak is just perfectly medium rare. And then cordless tools, another one.
Cordless
developed
tools,
by
Okay,
huh?
NASA.
nothing. So this is like my thing that I'm worried about. Is like nothing you just read was developed like post 1970. Maybe a little bit later.
Well, I mean, when did you have like an urgent push? I mean,
Were
Kennedy
you sleeping on
made
memory
but
foam
no,
in the
this is-
fucking 80s?
Okay, maybe.
Tempur-Pedic bed
Okay, is that
when you
the
were
best
born?
thing we've gotten lately? Is like memory foam? Like that. That's sad. Like Eric Weinstein is
James
talking.
Webb Telescope, bro. That's a big one.
Well, I mean that's cool and everything, but like Weinstein has talked about this a lot.
unbelievable.
Like he sort of like lamented the demise of sort of like the cowboy intellectual. Like he talks about how we used to have like Richard Feynman and like elevate these people, and we used to split the atom and try to go to the moon, and like now we can't figure out how to get like grandma her pills like for a reasonable cost without her like dying. And it's just like, what are we doing as like a society now?
like no
it-
real material innovation.
Yeah, like we've outsourced that to like thank God Elon is doing this, I guess, because but like why does it have to be up to Elon to do this? Like what happened to us doing this
He's the only one.
collectively as a society? Like where did that go?
Peter Thiel has the same argument, and he's like, we don't have ticker tape parades anymore for like individuals, for people who accomplished big things, and it's not proper to celebrate an individual. Like
Well,
it's
I was
more.
thinking about this because I remember you brought this up, and I was like, what if it's just a shift away from individualism in general? Maybe
it's a
that's not a
problem.
terrible thing.
It could be that. I think it's a problem with capitalism. And I think I'm going to harken back to your gripe with crypto. And I'm going to use capitalism as like the analogy here. It's like all these devs want to build the next DeFi scam because that is what's going to best serve them instead of like creating something that's novel that's going to actually change the space.
I would also I think that's true. I also think what society like as a whole values and sort of holds up as like laudable has changed. So our society doesn't value Feynman anymore. It values like thinking about the collective, like victimhood, oppression, stuff like that. Like when was the last time you saw somebody like celebrated for doing like things that were like cool? Like it's like I feel like a lot of it is like what Armand says about like Elon. Now I think it's perfectly fine to say like, hey, is this the best way to be spending our resources? Like, do we want this guy to have this much money where all these people are suffering? I think that's a totally fair critique. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like society is celebrating like that sort of like cowboy, like intellectualism, like the way
I don't know,
it
dude.
used to.
I don't know.
Like, who's our modern Feynman?
I think there's a bunch of them now. But I think the difference is like,
Well,
I think
who?
plenty of people are getting celebrated.
Who?
Well, I only know Elon.
Well, I mean, it depends.
Elon
You
is
mean like,
not. Elon is mostly not liked though. He's not even celebrated.
no, but he used to be before he kind of put himself out there even more and became
But
the
he
richest
used
man
to be
in the world. Was
celebrated. I would
adored.
argue in a time where
Adored.
we still were kind of celebrating
or
that.
Bezos is a good
you know?
example. He's not really out there like publicly as much as Elon, but he's still hated on.
Yeah. I just think that we're talking about potentially two different things. I think there are plenty of people still appreciated by society, but what's happening is there's an overlay on top of that, which is the whole populism cultural narrative we've been seeing over the last 5 to 10 years that is making it appear that way and is literally also causing a huge portion of society to just hate on somebody because it doesn't align with their political
You're
narrative.
conflating populism and collectivism, though. I think.
Well,
I think
no, that's another layer.
Yeah.
That's another layer. But I'm just addressing the thing that I don't know if it's true that we don't value individual contribution. I've actually said this in the past that I've had a gripe with this, that I'm like, where has the appreciation of individuals gone? But the more I thought about it, I'm like, it is there, but I think they're just more under a microscope than they used to be. I think that's been a shift. It's like everything's changed about like what you can say and how you can say it, and are you speaking factually? So I just think the standard is higher. And I also think there's the collectivism thing, and I think there is the populism thing on top of it. But at the root of it, this is America. At least we, speaking as Americans, we still very much make it very easy for someone to gain a huge platform and become extremely popular by doing great things or notorious poor, bad behavior things. Either way, you can gain a platform very easily in this country. I still think that's
I feel like just the vast majority of platforms that have been given out and like that people have risen to in like the last decade have not been people who like accomplished things that are great for humanity. To be honest, like I feel like it's
Great
just
memes
like a lot
and
of
become
nonsense.
I don't know. I look at like Rogan and I'm like, look at how many scientists I've learned about over the last 5 years that I never would have known about. There's this independent news outlet essentially.
Rogan is hated on.
Rogan
He's not a fine man. But he does a service to society with the platform.
You're looking at one side of the coin. Joe Rogan is the most popular podcast in the world. What else do you want? Like, it is the most popular podcast in the world, and it's the most controversial figure, one of the most controversial figures. But we have people that I've been exposed to that I didn't know about before. Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, Eric and Brett Weinstein, all the scientists that he's brought on,
all of those people you
environmentalists,
just listed are highly controversial and not
also
universally
highly
celebrated.
popular with huge platforms of millions
And the
of
vast
people.
majority of everybody you listed, I would say, hasn't done anything super incredible for society. Also, they're pontificators. They're
Wait, they're
thinkers.
trying, right?
Yeah,
They're trying to do
I
things.
guess like if Eric
Sam
Weinstein,
Harris is trying to change the
Eric
conscious.
Weinstein changes the nature of physics with his like super string theory or whatever. I don't know what it is. Like then sure that would be like kind of crazy, but like
I think they're all trying. Like Sam Harris is trying to change the consciousness of the planet with a meditation app.
they're the essence of like what modern society is, though. I feel like, which is like a lot of this like thinking and like at least Elon he's like building a thing here and going to space, and like I can kind of get behind that and like just doing science.
Do you think do you think
but-
it's changed that much? This is what I wonder, because like if you go back in history before our lifetime, like Robert Oppenheimer, like do you think he was like universally celebrated, or do you think he got a lot of pushback? I'm guessing he got a lot of pushback.
Yeah, it was the same, but exactly. And we just didn't have the platform of information to know where's the radar on this person as a whole. Like how much hate does you have more information now about how disliked and hated a person is because there's signals. You have comments and like buttons that allow you to see what people think. How would you have known what people think about Oppenheimer outside of the discussions you'd have and the newspaper article you'd read, which was super controlled by one individual person or journalist or entity like the newspaper? I just think we have more information now.
Right. And then
It's not just more information.
And then I think about a guy
Society
like-
values different
I
stuff.
think about a guy like Einstein. He was probably like globally celebrated, but so was Stephen Hawking in our generation. You know, the guy got no pushback.
True.
I think we're more similar than we are different from the previous
I'm
generations.
not denying cultural shifts over time. We're definitely in a different era now. And the culture, we talk about it all the time on the pod, like how much the culture has changed. But I still think we have access to, and I think there was one thing getting lost there is like some of the people we mentioned are just academics. They're not builders. They're not going to build. But others are builders. That's what they do. And Elon is one of those.
But I was very specifically lamenting the loss of the sort of communal societal building, the building through like government and stuff like that. Like again, like we used to go to the moon and like we split the atom and we created all this technology. Like and now it's just Elon on his own with SpaceX. Like what are we doing as a society?
It's privatized, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's a reflection of the values of society. We don't value doing that like as like a societal government.
Yeah,
anymore,
I mean, those
right?
two. It's interesting that the two examples you gave, maybe we'll have more of that because like what we had in both those examples was an enemy and someone to fight against. Like we split the atom because we needed to win a war. What was the other example you gave?
Going to the moon.
Going to the moon.
Right, to beat the Russians.
Russia
To beat the
launched
Russians.
Sputnik, and we needed to be there first. Like I don't know, maybe like a bipolar
Race.
world will.
Is that
like,
what we need though? Like we
ignite-
as like human as society, we're like incapable of doing great things until like some other culture puts a gun
the
to our
enemy
head or
unites you
something?
into.
Yeah.
Well, specifically government-funded things, yes, maybe. And maybe the government is just no longer interested in funding those things because there's no
Like
battle.
Thomas Edison wasn't like government sponsored. He
Right.
was like a rogue like Elon.
He was an Elon.
And I think he probably got a lot of pushback too for his
and there's
ideas.
a great example of like both an academic and a builder. He was an incredible builder, right? It was
You know, if you listen to our last
pure
episode,
capitalist.
we did talk about like a little trade and the hollowing out of our manufacturing base in the U.S. And I wonder if that has something to do with what you're saying. Like when you were talking about, we haven't had any real technology or real builders like make a real impact. And I think we're talking about physical things, not necessarily like thought boys coming up with new theories and hypotheses on how the world works. And I wonder if there's some correlation between if the country's manufacturing base kind of gets hollowed out over decades, does that weed away in its ability to create true innovation? I mean, you know, it's so it confounds me that like the Biden administration wants to celebrate U.S. made stuff, and then you have this entrepreneur like building cars in the U.S., building batteries, building new technology, building fucking spaceships in the U.S. and like, won't even mention his name, won't even like acknowledge that he exists. And I mean, that's probably more political comment than anything, but still, I think the point remains like, did the hollowing out of the manufacturing base and the knowledge to build things
Logic
hurt that?
checks out, but I think you would then see the next Edison come out of China or the Philippines or something, and we'll see.
Yeah, you don't have the framework, the like maybe the like capitalistic framework to like let those people succeed.
Do you think there's like just like a bit of a anti-technology, almost like Luddite type mindset in the country right now because that has happened? Like if you hollow out like a bunch of people's livelihoods in the name of quote unquote like technological advancement or capitalism or whatever you want to say, like maybe people develop like an inherent like kind of sort of gag reflex when confronted with anything that even like feels adjacent to that.
It's a good point. I mean, like we're crowded when it comes to AI. We're crowded with the technologists, the people on the front of the adoption curve and what they think about it. But we haven't heard the silent majority, which is the ones who got hollowed out. You know, the middle of America. We haven't really heard their true thoughts yet. They're probably just
Because they haven't been hollowed out yet. Like I think like the people that are going to be hollowed out by AI have yet to feel that.
or maybe they'll be the ones who are best off. And we talked about that too. The creatives are fucked, and you can fix things with your hands. You're
Well, I
not
guess
worth
that's what I
as
mean.
much. Yeah.
It's like we haven't heard from the creatives who have been displaced by
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that too. That's temporary until the robots show up. Seriously, the electrician's in power for the next however many years, but
But it's cool this is happening because like we're talking about this topic because someone is launching a massive rocket into space to conquer another planet that wasn't even part of our consciousness of like what's capable before. So I think it's cool that, you know, this is happening in our lifetime
Yeah.
and we get the chance to
Well, let's
watch
get to the heart of the issue here, I guess. Like, are you guys fundamentally like optimistic or pessimistic on humanity? What does that even mean to be like optimistic or pessimistic? Like, is it a matter of survival? Is it a matter of like, will society here in America be thriving 10 years from now? Will it be worse? Like, how would you even define?
yeah, I think it should be
metric?
defined by like on one side of the spectrum, it just either is very dystopic and trends poorly for people and becomes worse and less safe, or it just completely ends. Is kind of that side. And the other side is that just generally trends better and there's more prosperity.
yeah.
I think it can be both. Where I'm thinking of it is kind of like what we talked about on the money episode in the most recent one, where it's like innovation and like productivity gains have benefited all people, but have benefited some more than others. So you'd see like quality of life improvements across the board, but you also see a widening wealth gap. So I think that's probably the way we.
But
continue
will
to
that
trend.
widening wealth gap for you end in destruction and dystopia and potentially the end of all things, or it's just cyclical and
No, I don't think
the
it's
band
yeah.
swings after a bottom is hit?
I don't think it's cyclical. I think it probably is here to stay, but we got to find some way to
What's here to say? The wealth gap?
the wealth gap.
So the wealth gap is here to stay and grows wider and gets worse.
I think so. I think so.
Both
Like,
things happen simultaneously.
particularly on like a shorter term time horizon, which I would call my lifetime. You know, as I zoom out, that's short. That's short term. My lifetime is short term, and I think the wealth gap widens during my lifetime, and I think we have to find ways to address that widening wealth gap during my lifetime.
It's interesting.
But
I
I'm
actually
still
feel the opposite.
I'm still optimistic about humanity during that time.
I think we close it.
I don't know. I choose to be, I think is the only clear way to describe it, a sort of optimist about the future of humanity, because it feels like one of the only choices I have. And I feel like if I give that choice up to anything else and to allow negative consequences and sort of a dark situation to take place, I will have participated in the creation of that dystopia. It's that simple for me. Like, I choose to be an optimist, and in particular a techno-optimist, because I feel like everyone has a part to play, and if you want to see a better world, then you better be doing something about it. So for me, it's a fundamental part of my identity that I hope never changes. I hope the world never becomes so dark that there's no staring at the darkness and still trying to be the light, that's like there's nothing left. I hope it's not like that dark place like we've seen in the movies sometimes. And I don't think it will be, because I think that if this type of thinking continues to be elevated and rewarded, or not even rewarded, but just like a sort of acknowledged and latched onto by different types of thinkers, and they also realize, hey, fundamentally, what that is just true. Like, what I believe is the reality that will unfold in front of me. It is that simple. And I think we often make it much more difficult than it is. And we believe that this is something outside of ourselves. It's not. It's not. I'm telling you, if you had 100 people in a room and 100 people said this is going to be a great life, it'd be a great fucking life. It's really down to that, because they would find a way to collaborate and make a great life for each other. But if a lot of people had fears and concerns and scarcity that you're going to kill me, or you're going to rob from me, and then I'm going to rob from you, and this outside entity is going to become too powerful and we're not going to be able to control it and all these things, then that's exactly what would happen. And then lastly, I also look at technology like AI, not as an existential threat, but just like any other technology that we've developed. And I think all technologies have aided and guided and enabled the evolution of humanity. And ultimately, this will be no different. We'll find our way. I think we're bringing up the right questions to make sure that we align it correctly, that there's regulation in place as much as necessary or possible to make sure that things just don't completely go haywire, so that we don't have things happen that are just like absolute catastrophes. And maybe a couple catastrophes have to occur to get very serious about how we tame technology. But this is not any different than anything else we've ever experienced.
It's very different, though, I think. So here
it's different in its magnitude, but it's not different in its nature.
Okay, here's how I see it. So in investing, we have something we call like a risk of ruin, right? You know, the idea that you blow up and go to zero. And when you're dealing with, like, say, a space like crypto, like where you are immensely bullish, and if you could just get to the long run and deal with the volatility, you'll have like effectively infinite wealth if you can avoid blowing up. And you see this like in evolution, right? You could have just millions of the species die off. As long as the species itself doesn't go extinct, you can keep iterating, you can keep moving forward, you can keep going and getting to the long run. I think when humans were a primitive species and we were just dealing with like sticks and stones and stuff, like we couldn't nuke ourselves, right? Now we literally can actually nuke ourselves, but we're also rapidly developing other technology that can effectively, metaphorically nuke us in a particular way. And I think like the problem I see with humanity is like we're really good at reacting when something slaps us in the face and like overcoming adversity and picking ourselves up and marching forward again. We're very bad at like advanced collective risk mitigation. Like you see this with like climate change and that sort of thing. My fear is that with like super advanced technology, we don't get the chance to like take a slap in the face and adjust and pick ourselves up and adapt and like iteratively move forward. We just like mess one thing up and then like the whole game is over eventually. So on like a really long horizon, I'm like kind of worried about that. I'm actually like pretty optimistic over the next 5, 10, 20 years. Like I think these problems are small on a relative cosmic scale, and I actually think we can move like through them. But I also just look at human nature and I see it like very poorly equipped to deal with these sort of say like 6 or 7 sigma events that in finance wipe out all your money, but like in humanity just wipe the whole thing out and then there is no chance to come back. That's like kind of my fear.
Do you ever think there's this like humanity has this collective conscious base layer, which is survival, and that will like, even though for as many political and cultural disagreements, economic disagreements you have, doesn't like kick in at just the right moment just to save off humanity?
100%.
Or you think this technology is like moving too fast and like we've created something that we don't even acknowledge is like, you know,
Yeah,
like
I think we're a collection of like carbon and other various atoms that has learned to evolve and react to the analog cellular world that we evolved in. And I don't know if we are going to be able to like sort of react in the same way to this new sort of digital or scientific world that we're creating, where like things happen way faster than we can sort of comprehend and react to, and we're just not wired
and we haven't
that
blown
way.
each other up yet. We haven't nuked each other yet. I mean, it's kind of funny that like our way to solve that was like shared mutual destruction. If you bomb me, I bomb you, and
Yeah, I
so
mean,
we
we've
all
gone-
die,
we've
and we
gone
don't
through,
want
50
that.
years out of 10,000.
Sure.
So it's small. Like my thing is like, can we get to 1,000,000 years? Like, what does it take to get to 1,000,000 years? Well, I think we have to become interplanetary for sure. And then we also have to figure out how to like mitigate these. Like, I do think AI is, I do actually think it's going to be like a huge problem. I'm kind of in that camp after thinking through it a lot. I think that's like a huge risk. And I think like, the biological and other sort of scientific advances we're making, like that are going to help us like immensely, are also the sort of double-edged sword where they
Yeah,
could
man.
be used.
I don't
for
know.
real.
It's like nuclear energy. It's the best source that we've had. We've discussed it on the pod, and yet look at what it can do.
But like imagine nuclear energy, except like you can just harness it with your keyboard. That's like what we're doing now. Like we're going.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your idea that like in the world I'm describing, collectively, if people are just like aligned, then you see positive outcomes. But all you need is one bad apple, one bad actor. And when the power source is so much more exponentially powerful, and all it takes is one bad actor or one mishap for something to go awry, I see that. I get that. But I think that what Nick said is correct. Like, I think that humanity does have a baseline thing of like, hey, like we have our differences, but like we want to live. Like, that's just like a baseline thing. We want to live. And so when push comes to shove, I think there's more collaboration than anything else. For the most part, there has been. And I think it'll continue that way.
Well, I'll let you end with that. I won't.
Eric, you got anything on it?
I won't fight you.
Are you bearish or
I
bullish
agree.
humanity?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's end on a bullish note.
Okay.
Don't let me,
I like it.
Don't let me drag everybody down.
No, that's fine. Well, I'm curious with the Alfalfa fam out there. Thanks in the community. Let us know. Are you bullish or bearish humanity? And yeah, I want to have more of these discussions. Many more. For
Many more.
years.
We've
Let's-
had some good.
let's
We've
not
had
end
some good
civilization.
post-episode talks in the Discord
Some very good
recently.
ones.
Been enjoying it.
Yeah, hop in the Discord. Let us know on the YouTube, and hopefully, I know we've teased it a couple times, but we're going to be setting up our live streaming soon. So there's another tease for you. Hopefully tomorrow we're working on that and setting that up for some live streaming
Yeah,
action.
it's like proof of stake in 2016.
It's
coming.
That's perfect.
It's coming,
All
guys.
right. Peace.
Bye.
Later.
Later.